Hello everybody, wherever you may be. Call me Felix. And here I am in Laoag, Ilocos Norte, and I'm here at a local restaurant called Comedor ni Rafael, and this is part of a long series of reviewing restaurants around Ilocos Norte. And we wanted to find the best eats around here. So we're going hyper local and going to the best carinderias, or I've done a lot of research as far as the best carinderias in Ilocos Norte, and that's how we're passing the time. So we are here at this carinderia of Comedor ni Rafael, and already I really love the setup here. It makes you feel like it makes you feel like you're in the province for sure. And then a lot of these old Capiz windows are here, all the setup, and then the thatch roofing too. Okay, food has arrived and we have a lot of food here. I'm gonna start with this sinigang na tagige. Tagige? Sinigang na tagige. So, Dad has been clamoring for this type of fish all over Laoag, in all other restaurants, and we found one that had it. So Dad is ecstatic about it. So let's take this big chunk of fish and quite a nice handsome piece of fish there. Make some vegetables, of course. And take a bit of that broth here. Just the soup here. Really tasty. Now, sinigang, of course, is tamarind-based soup that tends to run sour. Right off the bat, it's a very nice, comforting tomato-based broth and tamarind broth, and not a little bit of sour, but the fish definitely get a lot of the fish essence in that broth, in a good way, not in a bad way. It's a very fresh fish, you could tell. That's a very nice starter too. To open up with some soup. And we got two types of soup. One is the richer beef sinanglaw. And this is the more refreshing, well, slightly more refreshing, but also rich in a way, because it has a nice fish stock here. Waiting for rice, of course. So I'll eat my rice later. Eat it with rice later. We got some other fried foods here. Here's some calamari. Apparently this is a house specialty, with some vinegar and some red onion. Let's try that out. The calamari is a good crunch. It's almost as if it's like cornmeal sort of crunch. It's got like a cornmeal type of crunch to it. And it's not greasy at all, which is good. And then there's a chunk of calamari itself is firm. And next thing I'll try is the beef sinanglaw. Nice healthy beef chunks. This looks like a nice fatty gelatinous piece, I think. And JP was saying to me that there's some kamyas in here.
The sour fruit.
It looks like a star fruit from what it looks like, and it's a sour fruit in soup. So this is a really interesting version of sinanglaw. And sinanglaw, of course, is our beef, meat, and innards soup, which I've featured so many times on this blog. So there's a bunch of videos on that explaining this soup. I'm gonna try this broth with I shouldn't say star fruit, but kamyas. The broth is relatively light as far as not feeling too oily. It's just like straight up good soup broth. It's been relatively purified. And you get a little bit of a crunch from the kamyas. And not really sour. On the meat, there's nice lean chunks here. Quite substantive. I think this is a good balance sinanglaw. There's some good meat chunks in here. That gamias doesn't really add much sourness to it, but it's a balanced broth. It's not oily or greasy, and it's not too fatty if you're not into that. This is a nicely done broth in that sense. I like my broth a little richer personally, but it's also good. Next up, of course, you gotta try bagnet. This is, of course, an Ilocano specialty of deep fried pork in its own fat. That's the reason why it's ultra crispy, and so if you feel it, this doesn't feel greasy at all. Here in the north, the Philippines, you have to eat it with a mixture of bagoong or shrimp paste or krill paste, and then with some tomato and some onion, or what they call up here KBL. I'm just gonna dip that there. Bagnet is nicely fried, not greasy. Now, and of course, what you're thinking maybe is, why in the world would you put bagoong with pork? Because you're actually adding saltiness there. Well, because the pork here is not really salty, so you gotta add a little bit of that salty component there, and it balances out nicely with the garnish of fresh onions and tomatoes. Tomatoes adding sweetness, as well as the onion adds some sweetness and a little refreshing tartness. There you go. So even the fat's not super fatty or any off-putting sort of texture. There's none of that. It's just a very clean frying of that pork. And satisfying crunch there too. And of course, with the KBL, adds a little more saltiness, a little more sweetness, a little more umami flavor that you don't really get out of the bagnet, which is not supposed to be salty on purpose. And our rice has arrived, so good time to add this chunk of tangige, some fish, and some vegetables on our rice, a bit of soup too, and give this a whirl. The rice, with the rice and some green bean. I think the tangige is a little dry, unfortunately, but this soup broth is really good, which I think I would probably just would have kept it in the soup personally and eaten it from there. So in this case, putting it on rice, like some people's advice out there for me as far as like what to do with my food, did not work. Let's return it back to its home, yeah? And of course, add some more soup. And drink the soup. But yeah, I like it better that way. So, what haven't we tried yet? Apparently, they make one of the specialties of the house is tonkatsu. Now, you're thinking pork katsu, Japanese katsu? Well, why not? And they gave us the same sauce for the calamari to put it in. Or no, it's not. It's different. It looks like ketchup instead of like the brown gravy sauce you get with katsu. Okay, I'll shrug and say, okay, whatever. Pork is of good quality, but I think that, it doesn't really grab me as far as the breading. Breading is good as far as the texture. Not a ton of flavor, to be honest, but with that. But the pork is, again, good quality. It's just good chew, got good leanness. Not juicy enough for me, though, as far as that's concerned. And I'm not really a fan of the sauce as far as like, it's like a banana ketchup thing rather than the brown gravy sauce you expect out of Japanese katsu. And then we have this intestine adobo. Now, one thing you'll notice here is they have a separate takeout line rather than for dine-in. And so it's a traditional, what we would call turo spot. You point what you want, the prepared dishes. So this is where it came from the turo line. So this has already been under a heating lamp, I think. But, am I supposed to say that?
No, it's funny.
But it's the truth, though. So, I mean, like, prepared dishes. So this looks like liver adobo. I thought this was intestine, but there is some intestine. So this is intestine and liver adobo. And it's a nice, healthy chunk of liver there. It's a liver that tastes a little funky like an intestine, though. Or the liver got the intestine lent some of that taste over to the intestine taste of the liver. Now, how should I describe this? So, for me, this reminds me of more like a mousse, like someone had like liver mousse. So, and it has a little bit of the irony flavor, so a little bit intact, and then it has a little bit of that intestine flavor as far as like the funk in there. I've had better of this dish for sure. So the best versions of this dish, they have, it highlights the creaminess of the liver without much of the funk there, and then the intestines have like a nice chew to them, tastes clean, and then it absorbs the sauce really well. So for me, like, I think eating intestines is a treat, as far as like, because again, it soaks up all the sauce and it tastes a little bit lighter than regular meats, especially like fatty pork belly. But for me, I've had better versions of this dish before.
If it was Halloween and it was trick or treat, there would be a trick. Because it wasn't a treat this time, guys. Sorry. I gotta be honest.
Okay, tourism department. That was JP's opinion. That was not mine, okay? I was much nicer. I mean, if I was really harsh, I would say the calamari tasted like canned cuttlefish. Like that's something that came out of. But I have to be honest, that is true.
And the tangigi is really hard. Kind of like a beef jerky, kind of. I'm not too impressed with it. I don't know. I just gotta be honest. Though. And the rice took forever.
Yeah, there you go. We gotta be Americans about this and say, like, our rice came in late. Now, of course, in the Philippines, I think people would flip out if their rice came in late.
Exactly. That's the biggest no-no ever.
Yeah. But I think the bagnet is good. And of course, you have to have some more of that KBL. And I think it's well fried. It's pretty light, and it's got the right amount of crisp and texture. I like that. And the fat, you chew right through it, and it's good.
I gotta say the bagnet's the best dish. Bagnet's the best dish.
So if you come here, I would say get the bagnet. Although in Laoag or in Ilocos in general, a lot of restaurants do this dish. So bear that in mind. Everything else I think satisfactory. Sinanglao I think is good, but I've had richer.
Yeah. We've been spoiled.
Yeah, we've been spoiled by Mama Ping, haven't we?
Yeah.
And if you're really interested in seeing a really good sinanglao, check out my video on Mama Ping's place. And I'll link that to this if you've watched this far. To what a really good sinanglao looks like and what we think it tastes like. So I think I just have to say, to wrap up this video, I think we've tried all the food and, again, trying the best of Laoag here as far as restaurants go. And sometimes, you gotta be honest, you do run into one that's a little average. So, or below. Oh, well, or below. Okay. So, of course, we can't all be like Mark Wiens and like do the O face every time we eat something and pretend like and such. So, that's not us, unfortunately. So, okay, food here from Ilocos, but we'll find some other interesting places like we've had before. So, if you like this video, give a thumbs up. Why not?
For our honesty, at least give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, for our honesty, give us a thumbs up, right? And then, better yet, subscribe, because I assure you there are better food videos that we've covered. So, signing off for now. And, there's an empire that never ended. And apparently sometimes they should make sure that their food is fresher.